That guy was trying to talk to me. He was trying to touch me. A girl's gonna be arrested, trying to touch me. You pervert. You know. I had to get off the front. You know. So hopefully they turn out the camera. You know. So they're arresting me. A black American mob is following me around arresting me. You know. They're using Spanish. You know, and black Americans to attack me. You know, they're saying they're going to be killing Africans, and I've been exposing evidence against them. It started with the black Americans, you know, with them working for immigration. You know, I trolled him in 2011 online as I was posting video on the Black Gay Chat Live website. You know, and after they started trolling me online, I would be getting punched on the street. Me and my mother was in the shelter. They put anthrax in the shelter. Me and my mother had bloody nose, you know. And soon I went to go and rent an apartment in 2014, 219 Canal Street. The landlord started laughing one day, leaving me messages. The name of the landlord is, what's his name again? But 219 Canal Street, I remember the name, you know. Staten Island, New York, 10304. And one day was laughing, they left me a voicemail. Within 2 days, the apartment was set on fire March 19, 2014. Then down the street, July 17, 2014, the police went and killed a black American and Ghana that told me was going to be helping my core papers. As I was trying to sue the INS, I was also suing the police, the NYPD for kicking me and my mother out of another apartment in 2010. You know, then I've been on the street now. I'm being denied shelter. The police would arrest me, steal my green card. You know, I used to go beg for money in front of Eric Adams' office in 2019. He was a black American borough president of Brooklyn, and his staff would tell me to not come to their neighbor to beg for money. I'll tell them to stop discriminating against me. I'll say I'm a Nigerian, they should stop their xenophobia. I'll say, you know, they're letting undocumented immigrants get driver's license in Iowa, and they're, you know, in Ohio, and Nigerian just became mayor. And soon after, I was begging for money on Bay Ridge Avenue and 4th Avenue, and the Turkish jack came and slapped me. Then the police joined in and knocked me down and choked me. This was July 20, 2019. This is when they arrested me, locked me in the psychiatric hospital, stole my green card, stole my social security card, stole all my IDs. And I called the Nigerian embassy. They promised to come to the hospital to help me. July 20, 2019. And I was in the hospital for 7 days. The Nigerian embassy didn't show up. You know, then the hospital released me on the street. And they don't want to give me the police won't return all my properties they stole when they arrested me. So since then, I don't have my green card, social security card. And this Ricardo had the nerve to go and boast. You know, he did a press conference in our Shopton office some weeks after that, and he was telling people that outsiders are not welcome in New York, that New York is for black Americans that came only, you know, and it's asked outsiders to go to Ohio and go to Iowa instead. Things I was saying, it was repeating that to let me know it was the one that got my property stolen. Ricardo, they say he used to be a police officer. Before, when he was a child, he was arrested at 12 years old for prostitution. Yeah, stealing stuff from prostitutes. Yeah, in Brooklyn, him and his gang, and he went to jail. Then when he came out of jail, became a police officer when he came out of jail, and then he became borough president of Brooklyn. And then he became mayor from 2022 to 2025, and the police came and arrested me again last year while he was mayor. I was using the bathroom, and they came and lied on me. They said that the police came into the bathroom on November 14, 2025. I was using the bathroom, the women's bathroom, and the police came and dragged me out of the bathroom, said the black American said I stole something, and they wouldn't even tell me what I did wrong. For 1 hour, they were searching through my bag and dragged me out of the bathroom, and then they didn't find anything stolen, but they told me they were going to arrest me for not cooperating, because they were I was trying to use the bathroom, and they were dragging me out of the bathroom as I was trying to use the bathroom, so they set me up. They said, I was resisting. I was trying to use the bathroom. And they didn't tell me why they were dragging me out of the bathroom while I was trying to use the bathroom. So they waited for the time I'm using the bathroom to come and drag me out. And they said, they said they now put they now tell me to come to court as I was going to court. Because when they arrested me, they took me to their prison, and they were dragging my stuff up and down the staircase. So they had broken all my cards. I was managing the card like that. Then on the day of the court appearance, I was on my way to court, and the train conductor used the door to hit my stuff. It's like they had already told the train conductor to not let me go to court that day. So they formed Black American Gang. I don't know why the train conductor did that. I was about to enter the train, and it was using the door to crush my stuff. And they said they did it to a Brazilian woman, used the door to hit her, to hold her hand, and her hand fell off on the floor. She's now walking around with no hand and no leg. Another, they said they did to a Black American guy also, used to train door to hook him and cut him into pieces. Is now dead on Church Avenue. So they're training these train conductors to kill people with the train. And the guy used the train door to hit me. I couldn't go to court that day. So they have an arrest warrant out on me now. And they say, if you miss court and they'll have an arrest warrant on you, then they would deem you a violent person and you won't be able to get bail in the future. For your court case, you will end up spending like years waiting in prison and not being able to get bail. But there is a law that helps me. It's called the Fry Act. I'm a victim of human trafficking. My mother brought me here from Nigeria, and she told me a green card covers me. But when I got to the airport, they arrested me, said a green card didn't cover me. And since then, my mother's daughters killed my mother. This Black American gang was attacking me. My mother's address invited her to come to Pennsylvania in 2014. One of her daughters in Florida is married to a U.S. soldier, and the U.S. soldier would be punching my mother. I knew it. That U.S. soldier also sent me a naked picture of himself to my Yahoo account. I opened the picture, and he put a virus, and the virus, went into my email and stole all my email messages. While I was using the computer at the public library, New York Public Library in Harlem. So I contacted Yahoo that I have evidence in my email that this guy stole from me. His name is Ayinde Cheney. But Yahoo said they can't prosecute him, that they don't really they don't really go after people that hack into other people's email. I'm like, I'll be interested. I say, you always go after Nigerians that hack into other people's email. This Ayinde Cheney, he did that to me in 2011 and 2014. His wife, who was my mother's daughter, Flora, lured my mother to come to President to come and get money. When my mother got there, Citizen Ayinde was punching her. So my mother fled back to New York to treat her injuries and also to go to the hospital called Bellevue to treat her heart problem. And when she got to New York, those daughters showed up in the hospital. My mother was wondering, how was those daughters able to know where she is? Because my mother didn't tell them what hospital she was in. And those daughters started fighting with my mother, and they locked my mother up in the mental ward. And my mother was so angry. They said in that Bellevue, when they lock you up in the mental ward, the hospital staff would beat you, choke you. Black Americans said it was locked up around about the same time my mother was locked up there. They said his heart stopped beating when they injected him with the medication as they were locking him up in the mental ward in Bellevue. Said they were very hostile to homeless people being locked up in the mental ward. And my mother's daughters framed my mother up, said she's homeless, they should lock her up, and remove her from the cardiac unit and lock her up in the Bellevue. And the address speak with an American accent. They were born here. My mother speaks with a Nigerian accent, so they were able to get my mother killed that way, and they stole my mother's property. So under the Fry Act, and since they killed my mother, their daughter stole some of my immigration document also. The immigration gave me 2 green cards mistakenly. My mother kept one for me. I kept one for myself. So in 2015, when my mother's daughters killed her, they stole the green card my mother kept for me. And in 2019, when the police arrested me, they stole the other green card I kept for myself. So under the Fry Act, if you're a victim of human trafficking, somebody taking your immigration document, even if they accuse you of stealing, the case will be dismissed by the court, and I guess any associated charges. Because after they accused me of stealing, that's when they said I was resisting arrest. So under the law, that would be poisonous fruit, So under the law, if you're a victim of human trafficking, they said even if you're accused of stealing, the case should be dismissed by the court and any other associated charges with that stealing. So the idea of me, that would just be treated as unlawful entrapment, as even if I was stealing phones, The fact that my mother was killed, she was the one that brought me here, got me a green card, and she was supposed to be supporting me. And the fact that my green card has been stolen by the police officers in 2019. So the idea of, but I didn't steal no cell phone. I'm being watched by the surveillance satellite camera. Once you come out of immigration prison, they said this is what America is doing, is using satellite camera to watch you everywhere you go. So I'm going to subpoena the FBI to release all the satellite camera. So they said they're going to get me angry and beat me dead and use my mother's daughters to go and lie in court that I was a crazy person, but I was adopting children. So they're hiring Black American assassins. Two of them came on the train with me, and one was trying to touch me. The one was wearing like a red shirt, and it was while I was sleeping, it was trying to grab me, and it said it wants a lighter. So they're threatening me that they're going to arrest me again, burn on my property. I've contacted Governor Oko. She's friends with a Black American, Lisa James, who didn't help me at the time. A Black American gang was making fun of me. They work for INS. I used to go on a Black American gay website, blackgaychatlife.com, 2011, and these black gays working for INS. I used to post messages there. My name was Nigerian Africa. And I used to post messages that I'm going to become a musician, that like Shade Adu, a lady that was born in Nigeria and became a musician and sold many albums all over the world, including in America. She's now worth almost £1 billion. She lives in England now and sale. So these Black Americans, started sending people to punch me on the street. My mother said people were beating her up also when she's on the bus. People were kicking her, little kids. Then her daughters also lured my mother to come to Pennsylvania. And, and my mother's address, I have animosity towards my mother because my mother took them to Nigeria in 1988 and they stayed in Nigeria for 1 year because my mother went to Nigeria in 1988. I was in Nigeria to come and get me, but the Nigerian government invalidated our return plane ticket. She had bought a Nigerian Airways flight from New York to come get me and come back to New York. Return flight ticket. But when she got to Nigeria, she was trying to use the plane ticket again, but the Nigerian Airways said the plane ticket is no longer valid. So my mother was stuck in Nigeria for 1 year with her daughters. So her daughters used to beat her up. They don't want to live in Nigeria. So my mother arranged with a white family to bring them to America temporarily, And the U.S. Embassy borrowed my mother money for her daughters because they had U.S. passport. But they said they can't borrow me and my mother money. So after the daughters got here, within 1 year, they beat up the white family. So the white family put them in foster care in Pennsylvania. So when my mother finally got here, in 1998, my mother said her daughters were trying to kill her. Said, the 1 year they spent in Nigeria, they started having a Nigerian accent. I said when they came back here, people here were making fun of them. So my mother said she fled from Pennsylvania, came to New York, and was homeless on the street. So since then, my mother never liked to live with her daughters. But when the police took her home in 2010, and also we went to the shelter, and this Black American gang started attacking me. They work for INS. As I was in the shelter, I was posting messages on a Black American website called BGClife.com, blackgaychatlife.com, telling people I'm in Nigeria, I'm going to become a musician. And these Black Americans working for INS, was able to find I was in a shelter, and they were making fun of me, saying you're a bum, we're going to get you deported, and they will be following me around from online. They will come and meet me on the train. One of them was very light-skinned. He called himself a witch. So I used to preach about Jesus, and I used to say I'm a gay, but God loves gays, And this one of them, he calls himself a witch. He was a mulatto Black American. Then I started seeing him. He was posting pictures online saying he's a witch. He's a very thin, he had long braids. And one day I was on the train, and he came on the train, and he looked at me. I was so scared, because anytime I post messages online, it will be posting messages online also that he's a witch. So when I was on the train, he came on the train. I was like, how does this guy who claims himself is a witch and claims he works for the INS, I was able to locate me? So I was very scared. And soon the shelter put anthrax in me and my mother's room. In 2011, I ended up at the Coney Island Hospital with blood coming from my nose. My mother said she was on the bus and blood was coming from my nose. She was on the 46 bus in 2011, and the bus driver called 911 in 2011 around Post Avenue and Castleton Avenue, and said it's a woman with blood spilling all over herself in the bus, and they brought the ambulance to come carry her. So the 911 record should be traced for 2011 Staten Island, and the bus drivers for 46 bus. If any of them is still alive, the one that called 911. My mother said it must be a Black American male. He said there was blood gushing out of my mother's nose, and they had to call everybody fled the bus, and they had to called the ambulance to come inside the bus, carry my mother out with a stretcher. So that was anthrax. They poisoned me and my mother at the New York City shelter. It's called Brooklyn Hotel here in Coney Island. You normally take the Q train there. 800 East 12th Street, Brooklyn, New York. It's called Brooklyn Hotel in 2011. So my mother ran away from the shelter. And I went and rented an apartment at 219 Canal Street, Staten Island, 10204. When the Black Americans and INS worker discovered I was in that apartment, they told the landlord to sell the apartment in 2014. So I've been homeless ever since. And the Black American, Eric Gardner, was going to be helping me down the street. He was living. I met him on Bay Street and Victor Boulevard, a few blocks down the street from my apartment on 219 Canal Street. The police when I choked this Eric Gardner dead. And this Eric Gardner said was going to be going to court with me to represent me as a lawyer, because all the Black American lawyers I was trying to use, they suddenly stopped helping me. One said he has just finished Harvard Law School, told me he was going to be helping. His name is Xavier Cunningham. And all of a sudden, when these Black Americans were making fun of me, said they work for INS online, all of a sudden, this Xavier Cunningham, I had typed the court papers. I filed in the court 13 CV 5052 Brooklyn Federal Court. That's the receipt number. And all of a sudden, he stopped answering me back, Xavier Cunningham, and now find out he's now working as a federal prosecutor. So they rewarded him after he dropped my case. After he told me he was going to represent me. I dropped my case. Another Black American lawyer is partnered with an Asian American called Dunlap. D as in David, U as University, N as in Nancy, L as in Larry, A as in Apple, P as in police. So I met with this Dunlap, is an Asian American. He told me he likes my case. He's going to help me with that case, 13 CV 5052 I filed against the police for a victim and my mother wrongfully from an apartment on Staten Island, basement apartment. And soon he told me he was going to take my case. That's going to discuss it with his Black American partner. And days later, this Mr. Dunlap coming back says sorry. His Black American partner told him not to take the case. He doesn't know why. But he sent me an email that I should continue with the case and that's a good case. Then another Black American who was a public advocate of New York, Lita James, I called her on the phone. She told me she likes my case. But when I got to her office 15 minutes later, she told me she's changed her mind. She doesn't want to help me again anymore. In 2014, Al Sharpton also, when I went to his office, he started told me they're not interested. So this Black American law enforcement group that worked for INS were telling Black Americans not to help me, and they were monitoring my phone. If I dare speak with any Black American, they'll tell the person to help me. And they poisoned my mother with anthrax. And now they're hiring street gangs to attack me. So they're going to be killing Africans. In 2019, before they arrested me and stole my green card, this Black American, this other Black American gang is following me around and telling me they're going to kill me. The very guy, Eric Adams, is a Black American that's part of the law enforcement group. And he also claimed he's a Black American supremacist. And while he was mayor, he was telling Biden not to bring Black Africans here. And Black Africans, Biden allowed to come here. This Eric Adams was denying Black Africans shelter. A lot of Black Americans were sleeping on the street. So there's a Black American gang that work for law enforcement, including Eric Adams, and they're asking, whites to be killing us Africans, even Black Americans that want to help us, like Eric Gardner. They're asking white police to kill him, and they're covering up, and they hope that when they kill us Africans, they will steal our property. So they've killed my mother. This is the job of the Black supremacists. And I believe many Americans are aware, like Elon Musk, at one point, like this. And he started coming around really super people to Elon Musk. People thought it was fairly simpler. So they said there's a Black American, Black power that was doing this.